The Saturday morning sun streamed through Mom's kitchen windows as I toast my third cup of coffee, still feeling the exhaustion from another overnight shift at Riverside Urgent Care. My scrubs were rumpled, my hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, and I probably smelled faintly of antiseptic and stress. Not exactly the polished image my parents preferred for their weekend brunches. "You look terrible, Rachel," Mom observed, setting down her mimosa and eyeing my appearance with barely concealed disappointment. "When was the last time you got a proper night's sleep?" "I worked the night shift," I said simply, adding another sugar packet to my coffee. 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Dad looked up from his Wall Street Journal, his reading glasses perched on his nose. "Night shifts? At your age?" He shook his head disapprovingly. "Dr. Peterson's daughter Ashley just finished her dermatology residency. She'll be working normal business hours at a respectable practice in Manhattan." "Good for Ashley," I murmured, too tired to engage in another comparison session. "The problem, Rachel," Mom continued, buttering her croissant with surgical precision, "is that you're not thinking long-term. Working overnight at urgent care, that's not building a career. That's just getting by." My younger sister Emma walked into the kitchen, fresh from her morning yoga class, practically glowing with health and success. "Oh my God, Rachel, you look like you've been hit by a truck." "Mom, doesn't she look awful?" "Thanks, always the supportive sister." Emma poured herself a green smoothie from the blender. "I'm just saying, maybe it's time to consider a different career path. My friend Madison's boyfriend is a pharmaceutical sales rep. He makes 6 figures and works normal hours." "I like medicine," I said quietly. "But do you like being poor?" Dad interjected, folding his newspaper. "Because that's where this urgent care nonsense is leading you. Real doctors don't work graveyard shifts at strip mall clinics, Rachel. They have practices, hospital privileges, respectable patient bases." I sipped my coffee and said nothing. This conversation had become a monthly ritual, as predictable as their country club newsletter. Dr. Martinez at the hospital mentioned they're always looking for administrative staff. Mom offered helpfully. "Regular hours, benefits, and you'd still be in healthcare without all the messiness of actual patient care." The messiness. You know what I mean. The overnight drunks, the drug seekers, the uninsured people who can't afford real healthcare. It's not exactly the medical career we envisioned when you went to medical school. Emma nodded enthusiastically. "Plus, you could finally afford to live somewhere decent. That apartment you rent is in such a sketchy neighborhood. When I tell people my sister works nights at urgent care, they assume you couldn't get into a real residency program." "I completed my residency at Mass General," I said tiredly. "Yes, but then you came back here to work at." Dad gestured vaguely. "Whatever that place is called. Riverside Urgent Care. It sounds like a gas station clinic." My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I glanced at the screen. Sarah Mackenzie, executive assistant. I let it go to voicemail. "See." Mom pointed at my phone. "Even on weekends, they're calling you. No work-life balance. Real physicians have answering services and established practices that don't require constant availability. Real physicians," Dad emphasized, "work Monday through Friday, see patients by appointment, and build wealth through smart practice management. They don't exhaust themselves with overnight shifts treating whatever walks through the door." Emma leaned against the granite countertop. "Remember when we thought Rachel was going to be like Dr. Peterson? Private practice, big house in Westchester, country club membership. Instead, She gestured at my scrubs and tired appearance. "This." My phone buzzed again. Same caller. This time, I answered. "Dr. Chen speaking." "Dr. Chen, I'm so sorry to bother you at home, but we have an urgent situation. The medical center board meeting was moved up to 10 a.m. this morning due to the acquisition deadline. The legal team needs your signature on the final documents, and the investors are flying in from California specifically to meet with you." I glanced at the kitchen clock. 9:15 a.m. Which conference room? "The executive boardroom on the 15th floor. Should I send a car?" "No, I'll drive myself. Tell the board I'll be there in 20 minutes. And Sarah? Call Dr. Williams and ask him to present the quarterly patient satisfaction reports. I want the investors to see our performance metrics." Of course, Dr. Chen. Oh, and congratulations on the Forbes recognition. The PR team wants to schedule interviews next week about the Healthcare Innovation Award. We'll discuss it after the meeting. I hung up and reached for my purse. The kitchen had fallen silent. Who was that? Emma asked slowly. My assistant. Dad lowered his reading glasses. Your assistant? I stood up from the kitchen stool, suddenly feeling more awake. I have to go. There's a board meeting I need to attend. Board meeting? Mom's voice had gotten smaller. Rachel, what board meeting? I paused at the kitchen doorway. The Riverside Medical Center Board of Directors. I'm the Chief Executive Officer. The silence stretched for several long seconds. That's impossible, Dad stammered. You work night shifts at urgent care. I work one night shift per week at the urgent care clinic. It's part of our community outreach program. The rest of my time is spent running the medical center, which includes the urgent care facility, the main hospital, the surgical center, and our 3 satellite clinics. Emma's green smoothie sat forgotten in her hands. You run the hospital. I own the hospital. Along with the entire Riverside Medical Center network. We're currently acquiring 2 more facilities in Connecticut, which is what today's board meeting is about. Mom's wine glass slipped from her fingers and shattered against the kitchen floor, Chardonnay spreading across the white tiles. The Riverside Medical Center. Dad's voice was barely a whisper. That's the largest healthcare system in the region. Yes. You own that. I founded it 6 years ago. We're now the premier healthcare network in 3 states, with over 2,000 employees and annual revenues exceeding $400 million. Emma sat down heavily on a bar stool. But you look so tired. And your apartment? I'm tired because I worked an overnight shift providing medical care to people who can't afford to go anywhere else. It's some of the most important work we do. And my apartment is in that neighborhood because I like being close to the communities we serve. Dad stood up slowly, his newspaper falling to the floor. Rachel, are you saying you're actually wealthy? Yes. The Forbes Healthcare Innovator Award Emma's friend Madison probably read about? That was for developing a new emergency medicine protocol that's now used in hospitals nationwide. The medical center's IPO last year valued the company at $2.8 billion. Mom grabbed the kitchen counter for support. $2.8 billion. My personal net worth is approximately $800 million, though most of it is reinvested in expanding healthcare access to underserved communities. The kitchen was silent except for the sound of coffee dripping and Mom's labored breathing. I need to go, I said, checking my watch. The investors don't like to be kept waiting. As I headed toward the front door, Dad followed me into the foyer. Rachel, wait. I don't understand. Why didn't you tell us? I turned around. Tell you what, Dad? That my work has value? That providing healthcare to people regardless of their ability to pay is meaningful? That building something from the ground up can be more satisfying than inheriting a practice. But we thought. You thought I was a failure. You thought urgent care work was beneath me. You thought I'd made poor choices and wasted my medical education. He looked genuinely stricken. We were worried about you. No, you were embarrassed by me. There's a difference. Emma appeared in the doorway, her face pale. Rachel, I had no idea. We had no idea. Because you never asked. In 6 years of building this company, attending board meetings, managing thousands of employees, and pioneering new medical treatments, not once did any of you ask what I actually do at work. You saw the scrubs and made assumptions. Mom joined us in the foyer, having cleaned up the broken glass. Honey, we're sorry. We just thought. You thought that working night shifts meant I was unsuccessful. You thought that caring for uninsured patients made me less of a doctor. You thought that choosing to stay in this community instead of moving to Manhattan made me small-minded. That's not what we meant, Dad protested. That's exactly what you meant. I opened the front door. I have to go. We're closing on a $50 million acquisition today, and I need to be there to sign the papers. Rachel, Mom called as I reached my car. Can we talk about this later? Can we start over? I paused with my hand on the door handle. Mom, I'll always love you. All of you. But I need you to understand something. I'm not ashamed of the work I do. Not the overnight shifts, not the community clinic, not the patients who show up without insurance. That's not the lesser part of my job, that's the heart of it. But why didn't you tell us about the rest? The company, the money, the recognition. Because none of that matters if you can't respect the doctor who works night shifts to help people in need. I drove to the medical center in silence, my phone buzzing with messages from the board members and legal team. The parking garage attendant waved as I pulled into my reserved spot. "Good morning, Dr. Chen." And the security guard held the elevator for me. The executive boardroom was buzzing with activity when I arrived. Lawyers in expensive suits, investors with tablets and spreadsheets, board members reviewing acquisition documents. Sarah handed me a fresh coffee and a folder with the meeting agenda. "Dr. Chen," the lead investor approached. "Excellent work on the Connecticut facilities evaluation. Our analysts are impressed with your expansion strategy." "Thank you, Mr. Henderson. I believe these acquisitions will allow us to serve an additional 200,000 patients annually. And the profit projections look very strong. Your business model of combining premium services with community outreach is brilliant. It's both socially responsible and financially sound." Dr. Williams, my chief medical officer, joined our conversation. The staff at Connecticut General are excited about joining our network. They've heard about our innovative emergency protocols and community programs. Speaking of community programs, another board member interjected. "The mayor's office called yesterday. They want to discuss expanding our free clinic services. Apparently, our overnight urgent care program has become a model for other cities." I smiled, thinking about my parents' reaction to my night shift work. The meeting lasted 3 hours. We finalized the Connecticut acquisitions, approved the budget for 2 new community clinics, and discussed plans for a medical research facility. When it ended, I had signed documents that would expand our healthcare network by 40% and create jobs for another 1,000 employees. As the room emptied, Sarah approached with a stack of messages. "Dr. Chen, your parents called the office 4 times during the meeting. They said it was urgent." "What did you tell them?" "That you were in board meetings and would call them back this evening." "Thank you, Sarah. Anything else pressing?" "The Tonight Show producers called about scheduling your interview for next month's Healthcare Innovation segment. And Harvard Medical School wants to confirm your keynote address for their graduation ceremony. Schedule both for after the Connecticut transition is complete. Is there anything that needs immediate attention?" Dr. Martinez in the emergency department wants to discuss staffing for next week's overnight shifts. He said 3 residents specifically requested to work with you on community outreach rotations. Tell him I'll take the Thursday night shift. Those residents need to understand that community medicine isn't a consolation prize, it's a calling. I drove home to my apartment in the neighborhood my family considered sketchy. A diverse community where I knew my neighbors' names and could walk to work when needed. Mrs. Rodriguez from downstairs was watering her plants on the front stoop. "Dr. Chen. How are you today?" "Good morning, Mrs. Rodriguez. How's your grandson feeling?" "Much better since you saw him at the clinic. That ear infection is completely gone." "I'm so glad to hear that. Tell him to come by anytime if he has questions about his college applications. I meant what I said about writing him a recommendation letter." "You're too kind, Doctora. We're so lucky to have you in the neighborhood." Inside my apartment, I kicked off my shoes and finally allowed myself to feel the weight of the morning. My phone showed 17 missed calls from family members and a group text that had been active for hours. "Emma, I just Googled Rachel and OHMY God. Mom, Forbes magazine has her picture. Dad, Wikipedia says she's one of the youngest healthcare CEOs in the country. Emma, she's been written about in the New York Times. Mom, I found a video of her speaking at a medical conference. Dad, the medical center website lists her as founder and CEO. Emma, guys, I think we really messed up." I set the phone aside and made myself a simple lunch. Outside my kitchen window, I could see the medical center rising against the skyline, 15 floors of patient care, research facilities, and administrative offices that employed half the neighborhood and provided healthcare to anyone who needed it, regardless of their ability to pay. My phone rang. Dad's number. "Hi, Dad. Rachel, your mother and I have been talking, and Emma too. We owe you such an enormous apology. Dad. No, let me finish. We've spent the last 4 hours reading about what you've accomplished, and we're ashamed. Not of you, of ourselves. Of how we talked to you, how we dismissed your work, how we made assumptions. I could hear Mom and Emma in the background, both talking at once. The thing is, Dad continued, we thought we were encouraging you to aim higher. But you were already higher than we could even imagine. That's not the point, Dad. Then what is the point? Help me understand. I sat down on my couch, looking out at the community I served. The point is that my work has value regardless of how much money it makes or how much prestige it brings. The doctor who works night shifts at urgent care is the same doctor who runs board meetings. She's not two different people, and one isn't more important than the other. We see that now. Do you? Because next week I'll be back in scrubs, working another overnight shift, seeing patients who can't afford to go anywhere else. Will that Rachel be worth your respect? Or only the Rachel in the boardroom? There was a long pause. Both, Dad said quietly. Both versions deserve our respect. And our pride. There's only one version, Dad. That's what I've been trying to tell you. Rachel, Mom's voice came through the phone. Can we take you to dinner this week? Can you tell us about your work? The real work, all of it. I'd like that. And maybe, Emma added, maybe I could volunteer at one of your clinics? I want to understand what you do. What really matters to you. I smiled, feeling the exhaustion of the overnight shift finally catching up with me. There's always room for volunteers. Mrs. Rodriguez downstairs has been asking about English tutoring for kids in the neighborhood. Think you could handle that? I'd love to try. Good. Emma? Next time someone asks what your sister does for work, what will you tell them? That you're a doctor who changes lives. That'll do. After we hung up, I finally allowed myself a nap on my modest couch in my sketchy apartment, surrounded by the sounds of the community I'd chosen to call home. Outside, the medical center continued its work, emergency rooms saving lives, community clinics serving families, research labs developing new treatments. Just another day at the office. When I woke up 3 hours later, there was a text from Sarah. Dr. Chen, the Connecticut facility's integration is ahead of schedule. The staff there said they've never been more excited about their work. You're changing healthcare for the better. I smiled and started getting ready for dinner with my family. It was time to tell them what I really did for a living.